Hey everyone, and welcome. Do you remember when your entire university life was suddenly happening through a screen? I mean, for most of us, it was a pretty wild ride. Well, today, we're going to unpack that huge, chaotic, and yeah, sometimes frustrating shift. Because it's not just a memory, it's actually a perfect case study for our Anglais Mange Contemporain course on how innovation really happens. So, let's get into it.
I'm guessing this quote hits pretty close to home for a lot of you. That sudden switch to remote learning was a massive challenge, right? But here's what's so fascinating. That shared frustration, that feeling that things just weren't working, that became the very spark that ignited one of the biggest transformations higher education has ever seen.
So, to connect this to our course, we're looking at all this through the lens of Savoirs, création et innovation, which is really all about how knowledge gets made and shared. Our specific focus, our axis, is the production and circulation of savoir. We're about to see how a global crisis didn't just disrupt the system, it completely rewrote the rules for how universities create and spread knowledge.
And this right here is the big question we'll be tackling today, our problématique. Now, this isn't a simple yes or no question. We're going to dig way deeper. Was this a real chance for progress, or was it just a panicked reaction that came with a whole lot of unintended consequences? Let's find out.
Here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the crisis that kicked this all off. Then, we'll explore the incredible wave of innovation that came next. After that, we have to examine the new dangers that tagged along with these new tools. And finally, we'll get practical and talk about how you can build a really powerful argument about all this for your exams.
All right, let's start at the beginning, the problem. Before any of the cool innovation could happen, there was a really deep crisis. Universities were, frankly, facing a moment of truth.
Okay, just look at this number for a second. It's staggering. More than a quarter, 1 in 4, first-year students in the U.S. just didn't come back for their second year. This wasn't just a few unhappy people. This was a massive vote of no confidence in the entire system. So here's the bottom line. Universities were bleeding students, and they were bleeding money. They had to do something, and they had to do it fast. The old way of doing things was broken. Innovation wasn't just a good idea anymore. It was about survival.
So, faced with this massive crisis, what did universities do? Well, they responded with this incredible surge of creativity and technology. And this is where we start to see the opportunity side of our big question really start to shine.
Now, a key term you've got to know is emerging technologies. And no, we're not just talking about slightly better Zoom calls here. We are talking about a whole new toolbox. Things like AI, virtual reality, super advanced digital platforms, tools that can create learning experiences we could have only dreamed of just a few years ago.
But you know, innovation wasn't just about the fancy tech. It was also about pedagogy, the actual art of teaching. To keep students from zoning out online, professors had to ditch the old-school lectures and really embrace more dynamic, collaborative methods, like the project-based learning you see here. And this quote shows you just how powerful this stuff can be. I mean, imagine it. You're not just reading about ancient Rome, you're walking through the Colosseum in VR. You're not just looking at diagrams of a cell, you're actually conducting an experiment inside of one in augmented reality. These tools promise a much deeper, more active way of learning that, let's be honest, a traditional classroom just can't always replicate.
And here are some real-world examples of how this played out. We saw things like COIL, where students in totally different countries could team up on projects online. Universities started partnering with actual companies to solve real-world problems. They even turned their own museums and art galleries into virtual classrooms you could visit from your couch. Suddenly, knowledge was moving in completely new and exciting ways.
But, and this is a big but, this super-fast digital transformation was not without its risks. For every amazing opportunity, a new danger seemed to pop up. This is the other side of the coin, and it's the crucial counter-argument in our analysis.
So here's the central dilemma. The very thing that makes a university so great, its openness, its collaborative spirit, is also what makes it incredibly vulnerable. By design, their networks are easy to get into, which is fantastic for learning, but it's also a welcome mat for cybercriminals. And it's not just a tech problem, it's a legal minefield. Just think about all the sensitive data a university has about you. Your grades, your financial info, maybe even your health records. There's this whole complicated web of laws, like the ones you see here, all designed to protect that data. One mistake, one data breach, and it doesn't just put students at risk. It can mean massive fines and huge legal trouble for the university.
This quote points to another massive danger, the digital divide. I mean, what happens to the student who can't afford a high-speed internet connection or the powerful computer you need to run a VR program? If we're not careful,
All of this amazing innovation could end up creating a two-tiered system, where the best education is only available to those who can afford it. And that's not just a technical problem. It's a fundamental question of fairness and equality.
Okay, so we've looked at the good, the bad, and the complicated. But for your exam, just knowing the facts isn't going to be enough. You need to be able to build a strong, convincing argument about it. So let's quickly break down a simple method for doing exactly that.
This three-step method is your absolute key to success. It's simple. First, state your main idea clearly right at the start. Then you back it up with a specific example. A quote is perfect for this. And finally, and this is the most important part, you explain why that example matters. How does it actually prove your point? So let's practice with this quote from one of our sources. It perfectly captures that double-edged sword of tech innovation in education.
Right. So a good paragraph might start with the idea. The pandemic-driven shift to digital learning, while necessary, created a paradox where more access also meant more risk. Then you drop in the example. As Bitleaf's cybersecurity notes, while the technology provides easier access, it also presents new vulnerabilities. And finally, the explanation. This shows that the very tools meant to share knowledge more freely also exposed universities to huge threats like cyber attacks, which really complicates the idea that this innovation was a purely positive opportunity. See how that structure works? Idea, example, explanation. Simple. To pull everything we've talked about together, you can think of it like a three-act story. First, you have the crisis, which was the catalyst. Second, you have the incredible, innovative response. And third, you have the ongoing consequences. This new reality where universities have to constantly balance the amazing benefits of technology against its really serious risks.
And that brings us right back to our guiding question. So, was the pandemic an opportunity to innovate? Yes, absolutely. But it wasn't some simple, heroic story of progress. It was a complex, messy transformation, a forced evolution, where the huge benefits have to be carefully weighed against some profound risks to security and fairness.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We've seen that universities have been totally transformed, but the bigger question remains, are they actually better? And maybe more importantly, who is benefiting the most from this new way of doing education? That's a question that connects directly to other big themes in our course, like identity, power, and inequality. Thanks for your attention.